There's something your children are learning right now, and it has nothing to do with what you say to them, but everything to do with what you do, what you reach for at the end of a hard day, how you celebrate, how you switch off. They're watching, they're not judging, but they are learning. And here's what so many smart and successful parents can overlook. The most powerful parenting lesson you'll ever teach had nothing to do with the rules that you set. If you're somebody that's built a career, raised a family, and worked really hard, but you also know that alcohol has become a bigger part of your life than you want it to be, this video is for you. What my son told me just a few days ago prompted me to create this video. My name's Sarah Connolly. I work with high-achieving, high-functioning professionals, executives, parents, and grandparents. People who are, by external measures, at least looking like they're doing well, but are also regularly wondering what alcohol is costing them. And perhaps it's costing them more than they're willing to pay. Some of these costs are obvious, but some of them are more subtle until it's too late. And today I want to talk about one of those costs, the invisible curriculum that we're teaching our children every day. Just the other day, my son, who's nearly 16, came and talked to me after his very first date. And something that he said in that conversation was really impactful for me. The young girl asked him if he was interested in drinking. And he said no. He asked her the same question, and she said no, neither of my parents drink anymore. They've both quit. And of course, my son knows that I don't drink. And I remember thinking at the time just how much influence we have on our kids simply by our actions. I've never sat down with my son and given him a big speech about alcohol. I've never told him that he can't drink when the time comes. But what I have done is show him what I'm like as a non-drinker. And he also remembers what I was like as a drinker. He's watched how I live and the changes that I've made, and now thankfully I don't need to make rules because he's making up his own mind. This moment stayed with me because it made me think about all the other things that our children are quietly absorbing, the things that we never say out loud, but we live out in front of them every single day. Before I go further on this topic, I've put together a free guide. It's for anybody who's starting to wonder whether their relationship with alcohol is getting in the way of the person that they actually want to be. There's no label, there's no shame, there's no rock bottom required. It's just a simple starting point. So I'll put a link in the description and it's completely free. Okay, so let's get into it. Here's something worth considering. Children don't inherit your values from your lectures. They inherit them from your habits. Think about what your own family culture is actually teaching them. How do we celebrate in our house? How do we handle stress? What does it look like to unwind at the end of the day? For many of us, and I include myself in this, the answer for a long time was opening a bottle of wine. And we don't think much of it because it seems normal, right? The problem is normal isn't the same as intentional. And when we're not being intentional about what we're modeling, we hand that pattern straight to the next generation. One of the most powerful things that we teach our children is what to do when life gets hard. And most of us have never really consciously thought about what that lesson is. When I'm overwhelmed after a long week, when something goes wrong at work, when I'm frazzled and I need to switch off, what do I reach for? If the answer is a glass of wine or beer or whiskey, then that is the curriculum. That's what your children are learning stress relief looks like. Not because you've explicitly told them, but because you're showing them every time you do it. And there's nothing wrong with you for doing it. Honestly, the pattern makes complete sense given how our brains work. But it is worth knowing that it's happening. But what do you want them to remember? Let me ask this question. When your children are grown, when they're sitting with their own families, living their own lives, what do you want them to remember about you? Not the holidays, not the car you bought them, not even the advice that you gave them. How did you live? What kind of person were you in those quiet moments? What did you model when no one was giving you a pat on the back for it? One day your children won't remember every conversation you had with them, but they will remember how you showed up and how you lived. That's your legacy. Not financial, but emotional. So I want to be really clear. This isn't about shaming. It's not about you becoming a totally different person overnight. And it's absolutely not about labeling yourself or beating yourself up. The people that I work with, they're not weak or broken. They're just smart, capable, extraordinary people who've learned a very effective short-term coping strategy that's simply starting to cost them more than they're prepared to pay. And the moment that they understand that, something can change because it was never about pure willpower. It was about having the right tools and the right environment. So this is really important. The greatest leadership role you will ever have in your life is not your job title, it's not your business, and it's not your career. It's who you show up as at home, the leader your children see when no one else is watching, the person you show up as on a Tuesday night, the model you provide for how to handle a hard day with grace. I've worked with hundreds of people who've reached a moment where they thought, I don't want this to be my story. I don't want this to be the legacy that I leave behind. And every single time in that process of change, their children and their grandchildren and their friends and their partners have noticed it. And it's not because they've made some big announcement, but because the energy at home has changed. When people say to me, my kids have told me they're so proud of me, that's what makes my day. And what they share is that they didn't say a word about what they've been working on. Their kids just felt the change. If something in this video has landed for you, if you found yourself recognizing it or maybe even feeling a little bit emotional, then please do take the time to download the free guide that I've put in the description below. When you read it, it will start to give you a taste of a different way of thinking about not drinking or cutting back on your drinking, understanding the patterns and some tools on how to start taking action to change the behavior. Because when you change, everything around you changes too. The link's in the description, totally free, no catch, just an easy starting point. And if this resonated, please do hit subscribe. I put out new content every week on the science, psychology, and the practical side of changing a relationship with alcohol. There's no lectures, no doom and gloom, just honest, evidence-based conversations for people who are ready to think about this differently. Next week, I'm going to talk about something that so many smart, busy, perfectionist people struggle with, which is the evening wine. Why it can feel so challenging to get home and not pick up a drink. That will be next week. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. And don't forget, like, subscribe, send me a comment or a question, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.